in the new Nordics. My name is Ella Nykänen Andersson and I'm the Press and Cultural Counselor here at the Embassy of Finland in Stockholm. We are one of the organizers behind today's event, and we've joined forces with our friends at the Danish and Estonian embassies in Stockholm, as well as with a lot of other partners. Today we're going to be discussing a subject that is very close to all of our hearts, education. As you all know, we're now about 1 year into the corona pandemic, a crisis that has affected schools around the world in many ways. How is education changing as a result of this crisis? And how can digital technology help us tackle the challenges we face, such as inequality and emotional stress? How is Sweden planning to digitalize its schools, and what do the edtech companies in Finland, Estonia and Denmark have to offer the Swedish school sector? The next hours will be dedicated to answering some of those questions and hopefully many more. We have a great list of speakers today, ranging from education ambassadors to company cases and experts from many different fields. Before we get started, just a few notes on the practical side of things. If you have a question, you can write it using the chat function, and we'll try and take up as many as we can. With that said, let's get started with our first session, EdTech Export Opportunities in Sweden. This session is targeted especially for EdTech companies looking to enter the Swedish market. For many EdTech solution providers in Finland, Denmark and Estonia, Sweden is a very attractive market with ambitious plans to digitalize its schools. But how exactly should you go about entering this market, and how does the Swedish system work? Our first speaker knows all about that, Janni Jeppesen. She's the CEO of Swedish EdTech Industry, the new trade association for EdTech companies operating here in Sweden. Janni has an extensive experience as a consultant of digital competence in Swedish schools and municipalities, and she will be sharing the latest developments and insights on how to approach the public and private market in Sweden. Janni, over to you.
Thank you. Do you hear me?
I can hear you.
You can
Please,
hear me.
go
Yes,
ahead.
thank you. So I'm just going to find my presentation and share it. So just give me a moment. So
Yes.
give me a notice when you see something. Can you see my
I can see your
desktop?
screen. Yes, and that's the presentation. Yes.
Yes, perfect. So now I don't see you. So you need to just give me a sound sign if I go over time. So thank you so much for inviting me to this fantastic seminar, and it's great to hear that we're so many present on the seminar. And I'm going to, in 10 minutes time, try to give you a short overview of the Swedish EdTech market and also the latest developments ahead of what's happening. And you said that we are starting to digitalize our schools, and I think I'm going to show that we are really fully digitalized in many, many ways. So, but that leaves several opportunities as well. So I'm going to give you a quick overview of the Swedish market, but at the same time, we have a lot of things in common from the Finland, Danish and Estonian ways of structuring our education sector. So I'm trying to focus on the differences in Sweden compared to the other markets. But first, just a quick notice on the Swedish EdTech industry. It's a trade association for EdTech companies operating in Sweden. And we have around 19 members, and I think our members they match 70% of the education technology market in Sweden. And we have been around for 4 years, and our main goal is really to strengthen the EdTech ecosystem together with authorities and informing public policymakers and establishing networks for increasing the quality of implementation of technology in education. And we've been around for about 4 years now, so we're quite new, but I know that in a Nordic sense, we're one of the oldest trade associations. So just a quick background on Sweden. We have been dropping in the PISA the last 10 years, but now since 2018, we're starting to climb back. So now we're together with our Nordic friends at the green part of the PISA evaluations, which is very positive. So this is something that we have been struggling with, and I can tell you that the public debate on digitalization in schools has used PISA as an example that digitalization can be really difficult. But now we're climbing, so we're very happy about that. Another background is that Stockholm was appointed the 10th most interesting edtech city in the world a couple of years ago. And it's not because of our size, but it's because of our strong networks together with the Nordic countries. So I would say that this appointment was really for the Nordic ecosystem. And why Stockholm was considered, was pointed out, was because we have a really strong ecosystem when it comes to large conferences and marketplaces. We have SET and we have Sweden for higher education and corporate education, but we don't know what's happening with them now. But we also have test beds and other things in our ecosystem that is really good to tap into, which is a good thing to know that we have an ecosystem to tap into, which is important to find your way on a new market. Let's shift to the next one. This is a short overview of how decentralized the education system in Sweden really is. We have 219 municipalities. And what's interesting here, I highlighted it in red, is that we have 600 school owners, and which is that 14% of the students in K-12 is attending a free school. And free school is quite unique in Sweden. And from a market perspective, the free schools are organized like companies, which means that they're not, they don't have to procure by law, which means that you can direct purchase is what happens there. So this is one, when you enter the Swedish market as a new startup in Sweden or as an external company, this is mainly the way in to test and market your products and get references in Sweden. So I just wanted to highlight that. But the Swedish education system have been digitalized for many years. But as you see, 2018, our national strategy for digitalization in schools was applied. And that means that we were last in the Nordic countries to have a national strategy, even though we were really fully digitalized, but the digitalization happened from a grassroots perspective in Sweden, which means that we have a lot of holes to mend. But it had also given us a very diverse edtech landscape, because we have high competitive and very locally built ecosystem, which also is a hurdle in some sense, but can be something that can give you an opportunity. The digitalization in schools, this is pre-COVID numbers, is that we are very digitalized, which we have been very grateful for during the pandemic, because it was easy to continue schooling digitally. What stands out here is that only 20% of the textbook market was digitalized pre-COVID, and this is a trend that we can see that the COVID situation and also the pressure from the public policy is that we think that the digital content in schools are increasing and will still continue to increase, which is an opportunity.
Janni, sorry to interrupt you, just to tell you that you have about 1 minute to go.
Wow.
Time flies.
Okay, so I will share you the presentation. Short numbers, we're 2.3 million students in K-12, and we are a growing population, which means that we are growing. What happens in the vocational higher education and corporate education is also that reskilling and a lot of state initiative coming in to enhance reskilling, which means that this is very interesting market, e-learning for corporate education and also public sector. So here you can find great opportunities. The market size is about this. This is from 2019, and we expect it to grow, but it's very price pressured. And if you count the numbers, you can see that we have very tight budgets, so it's very competitive in that sense. Good for the customers, though. What I want to tip you that procurement is something that Marita will talk about, but I will tip you that edtechkartan.se is a map of the digital ecosystem, which also gives support for procurement, which also can help you to understand how it works in Sweden. And I just want to end with the challenges and opportunities. It is a high competition. We have a great opportunity to enter with a test bed, and we have expecting budgets for learning resources to increase, and we need collaborative and data-driven resources. And I would just finish up by saying, if you can make it in Sweden, you can make it anywhere. It's high competition, but we welcome even more into our markets.
Thank you, Janni. Very good introduction to the Swedish market there, and we'll be hearing more about much of the details you told us about there. I have a few questions from the audience. A number of edtech solutions out there have been validated through scientific studies. How important is this to consider when choosing which ones to adopt? How much do you think about that? How much do the schools think?
I would say that we are very interested in it. It's a public debate. So if you can show and have some kind of evidence or references that your product really works and brings quality, it's very interesting for Swedish, and they're really informed and looking for it. Hanna will give you a short description on the testbed afterwards. But also, what I also want to say is that GDPR is super interesting in Sweden. They really want you to show how you apply and comply to the GDPR rules. That is, we have really high knowledge on that in Sweden compared to our other Nordic countries, I would say. So you need to show your GDPR compliance.
That's really not something to be overlooked.
No.
How about another question here from the audience? How ready and willing or motivated are teachers to collect data about their own teaching, so teaching analytics?
Data-driven resources and learning analytics, there's a high interest here. So I would if you apply to the GDPR, I would say that it would be a really interesting product for the Swedish market, yes, especially for the school leaders and municipalities level, yeah.
Right. And just a little bit more in relation to the edtechkartan you mentioned, the map that you showed us, edtechkartan.se. How is the interplay between municipalities and schools in terms of procurement? How is the decision made to procure?
Marita are going to tell you about that process, but I would say that the maturity of the procurement level is pretty low on many municipalities. We have so many different municipalities and a lot of small municipalities. So this is something that we really try to address with the EdTech map to help them make really smart procurement and have tight dialogues with the vendors so they know what they're asking for, and also that they know that it will bring them the value they are looking for. And this is something that is really it's difficult in many ways, but there's a lot of initiatives around the country to try to increase in that kind of procurement. So, but I would say a lot of the municipalities are really stepping forward, and so yeah, it's a big variation, I would say.
Yes, but lots of interest for edtech solutions and willingness to go forward with the digitalization that you've already started then.
Yes, and the one thing that is particular in Sweden is that the teachers and schools are very locally and historically very locally. They want to take their own. Their autonomy is really important. So large national initiatives it's difficult to implement in a large scale. You need to work from the grassroots perspective, I think. So that you need a lot of footwork. I guess I would say you need more footwork than just working from a national or a top level.
Right. Well, thank you, Jani. I think we're going to move over to our next speaker, who is Marita Domander, Category Manager for Education and Learning at the Swedish Central Purchasing Body. Marita has worked within project management, supply and procurement for the past 10 years. And she'll now be taking you through the public procurement process, public markets and framework agreements in Sweden. Marita, the floor is yours if you're feeling ready.
Thank you. Let me see if I can find my presentation. Let's see.
Yes, I'm seeing it.
Let's see. But you see the whole thing, don't you?
I see your whole screen.
Yeah.
I see the PowerPoint window, I guess.
Is that better?
Yeah, that's good. Yes.
Okay, good.
Go ahead.
So what I want to do is I work as a category manager at a central purchasing body called Commentus Inköpscentral. And as you said already, I am category manager for education and learning. And we have different categories in our administration, which is they differ from vehicles, energy, office supplies, vaccines, and obviously the most important one, education and learning. And we have, I'm going to start in another end, which is we work with our clients, our customers, and we need to face their reality. And yes, we are talking about digitalization and how to incorporate that in our purchasing and our public procurement. But we need to consider all the challenges that our clients are meeting. And I know this is in Swedish, and I'm going to try and explain it. But I made a simple pest analysis, and there are political factors to consider, like sustainability and political stability or instability, if you feel. There are economic factors like globalization and growth and new markets, social factors like urbanization and demographical changes. And we have technological factors like robotization and, well, the digitalization, obviously, and a more efficient use of energy. And all these things are factors that our clients, our customers are facing, challenges that they are facing every day. And my work and my colleagues' work is to help our municipal areas and regions to face these challenges. And there is reduced local and regional opportunities to work. Just as Gianni said, we have self-government in all the municipal areas and all the regions. We have 290 municipalities and 21 areas, 21 regions that are self-governed, and they make their own decisions. And so what we need to do is to think about there is a big variety, And when we work with public procurement, we need to be generic and not too specific. And we need to think about this. And there are increasing expectancies on welfare care. We have more competition about competence, and we have an increased polarization. There is an increase on rural Sweden. Media landscape is changing. There is an increased lack of trust, and we have increased opportunities to use technology to make things more effective. And there is a municipality focus on integration and big uncertainty and geopolitical conflicts. And not to mention, we are going from a knowledge society to a network society. All these things we need to consider when we make our public procurements. So to make a strategy for a portfolio which is addressing education and learning, we need to help educational institutes to follow the national curriculum, and we need to make hard things easy, because people are going towards more and more specialized work tasks. So we need to make everything that goes on top of their own work tasks really easy, which is we need to make it easy for our clients, our customers, to use our framework agreements. We need to identify and have clear and outspoken benefits for the customers. This framework is addressing sustainability, or you can make these earnings and savings, or things like that. We need to be strategic prepared. This is a thing that has been really, really clear the last year. We need to know the supply chains, and not to mention, obviously, the digitization. We need to incorporate that. That is super important. And we have similar future challenges, and this is where you come in, I would presume. But sustainability, that grows more and more important. There is a more and more interest for having green framework agreements, or have circular use of things, of products. Obviously, again, strategically prepared is keywords. We need to have control over our supply chains. There is a demographic growth or change that we need to consider, because people are growing older and older, and there are fewer and fewer people earning tax money. So the tax money is for our municipal areas and regions. They have less and less tax money to buy more and more products and services. So as Janni said, that is a competitive market, and obviously there is focus on digitization, that goes unsaid. And again, we need to make complicated things difficult things, we need to make them easy, because people are more and more specialized, and teachers and preschool teachers might be really good and specialized, but they might not be as interested as I am in supply chains and purchase area. So I need to make it really easy for them to use our framework agreements. And today in the portfolio, we have framework agreements that are concerning literature, different kinds of literature. We have teaching materials, obviously, reward toys. We have lots of material that goes to preschools and leisure centers, and lots of focus on small kids, which gives us a focus on sustainability and green framework agreements. We have to be able to help. Our purpose is to help our clients, our customers, to go through with the digitalization in Sweden, and we need to make this possible. So possible and easy. So that isn't easy. And now I think you expect me to say, well, the set requirements are A and B and C. I'm not going to say that because every framework agreement is different, and the development is going super fast, and what is current today might not be current in 2 weeks or 6 months. So we have different requirements in different framework agreements, and our way to address this is to have dialogue with our clients, with our customers, and obviously with the suppliers. And I can talk about this for days, but I know I'm limited in time, and I would be really grateful if you would contact me, and we could consider having a meeting and phone meeting, team meeting, whatever, and discuss this. And if you want to come into the market and be a part of our purchasing bodies framework agreements, then we need to have a discussion, and we need to further develop this settings and requirements. But I can't give you the specifics here now and here. What time is it?
I think you're doing very well. Thank you so far. And we've got a few questions in the chat. Also, I saw that Janni, you answered some of them, and I'll pose it to you, Marita, as well. If you're a small edtech company, what would be the first step if you want to get inside the market? What would you do? Is it contacting you, or is it contacting a school? Or
I would say it's easier to contact me than a school, because, as I said, we have 290 municipal areas, and today we have over 200 that uses our framework agreement. So it's easier to contact me because I have contact with so many of these schools. So that is one way in, at least, because you don't have to make so many different contacts if you contact me.
Yes, that's a good starting point. And Janni, I know you have to go soon, but I think we have one question for you as well. I think it referred to your presentation. Let me just find it here. Only 20% is digital sources. Is that percentage too low? That question came from Rahim. Is it? Yeah, do you understand that?
Yeah, thank you for that question. It's about 20% of the textbook market is digital, and the textbook market, this is important, is like, I think it's like 650 crowns, Swedish crowns per student a year in Sweden, which is half the size budget you have in Finland. So Sweden has a really, it's really a really tight textbook budget, even though when it comes to both analog and digital, and only 20% of that market is digital. 2019.
Right. So there's not much room for purchases
there is a public pressure on, a policy pressure on increasing the budget for equity in the Swedish school system, because you need to have access to textbooks, even though no matter if they're analog or digital. And we see a shift, and during the pandemic we have seen a shift in sales. So we expect the digital size and also the entire size of the textbook market to increase.
Right, so there is political pressure to do that as well.
Yes, and of course the needs from the COVID situation. You cannot, you need it really.
Yes, you need digital sources. Absolutely. Let's just see before I let you go if we have more questions here. Yes. For Marita. Do the Swedish teachers have rights or possibilities to choose their learning materials or software according to their needs, or is that controlled from top to bottom?
They usually decide themselves. They have their own pedagogical hardware right to decide themselves what material to use. So in my experience, and I've been working at this particular job for 6 years. In my experience, that is, they decide themselves and they make the purchase themselves. So it's as Janni said, it's grassroots decided. Really, it comes from down under.
Yes.
Down. Well, yeah, not Australia.
From Australia.
But yeah, yeah, exactly.
No, but grassroots.
It is the actual users that decide what they want to use.
And also another question I saw there in the chat: do the materials have to be in Swedish?
Yeah, I would say yes. Yeah.
I guess unless it's a language.
Exactly. Yeah.
I would say if you address the K-12 market, you need to have your market, your sales, everything in Swedish. That would be something to say. Corporate education, completely different. But the public sector in Sweden, yes, you need it. You need to have representatives that can speak Swedish.
Yes. Thank you both for those very informative presentations. Moving forward in the program, next up is Test Your EdTech Solution in Practice, an introduction to the Swedish EdTech test bed. This is a very interesting initiative that Hanna Elving, Change Manager and Project Lead for Swedish EdTech, will be telling us more about. Hanna has previously worked as a political and strategy advisor for the political party Moderaterna. She's also worked for Business Sweden to promote Swedish businesses in China. And today she works at Sweden's first national test bed for EdTech companies. And she'll be giving you an introduction to testing your solution in practice. Welcome, Hanna, and go ahead.
Thank you, Elna, and I hope that you can see my slides.
I can.
Great. And I just go ahead, and a lot of questions had already been answered from the previous speakers, but I will try to address them in my way as well. So my name is Hanna Elving. I work at the municipality of Nacka, and I am the head of Sweden's National Testbed for EdTech. And what does a testbed for EdTech do? Well, this is our core. We are financed from Vinnova to narrow the gap between learning and digital development. And why is it important to narrow that gap? Well, we think that digital tools and teaching methods can develop together, and then they can to a higher extent address the real needs in the classrooms. And also strengthen the teacher's competence to choose and evaluate learning resources. And here is the grassroots level again. If the teacher doesn't know what to ask for, you will not get the right questions about your products. So that is what we do. We try to raise the digital competence among the teachers, as well as raising the awareness for you guys in the EdTech sector about what is needed in the schools or in the education sector. As I said, this is a national project. We are financed by Vinnova, Sweden's innovation agency. And I will not tell you about all the partners, but you see that Janni and Swedish EdTech industry is one of our partners. And then we start at the preschool level and we go all the way up to the University of Halmstad, Högskolan i Halmstad. So we are embracing the lifelong perspective here. And we have test beds from from the 1-year-old until you're 99 and go to the university. And we've been up and running since March 2020. So we started a year ago, right when the Corona shutdowns hit us. But even though we've been having around 160 teachers involved in tests during this year, we had 45 edtech companies testing their products, and they are mainly Swedish. Some of them are from the Nordic countries and Britain. And we have 80 teacher training students testing as well. So those are the people involved. And does it work? What values do we create? Well, you see the yellow blob there. It's for the ed or for the teacher or the educator side. Everyone that tests with us say that their digital competence has increased after a test. And all of them also say that their awareness and the ability to choose and evaluate a digital learning tool has increased as well. And they also get a more systematic approach towards quality in EdTech. What should we ask for? And if you go to the blue blob over the value for tech, well, we see that the companies that are testing with us, the two main thing that the values that we create is the first, the matching, the connection. As both Janni and Marita say, it's a grassroots. It's a grassroots market. You need to knock on many doors to find someone who are willing to test your product. At least with us, there is one door, and I have the connections with several schools and teachers that are willing to test. Saying that, all companies that apply for testing doesn't test with us because it's the teacher who chooses what to test. We also see that the testing companies, they can use the information they get from the teacher to improve their products. So design input directly from the market and the users. And what is, I think, what is special about us and the test bed that we have is that we have to create equal value both for ed and the educators and for the edtech companies, because without any teachers testing with us, there won't be any testing. As same if the companies doesn't get any values from testing with us, there won't be any testing going on and any learning either. So that is my hardest work, to make sure to balance so there is an equal value for everyone involved. The second thing that is not unique, but I think is one of our features, is that our test method is based on science. We work together with a researcher named Anna Åkerfeldt, and she has been developing the questions we ask, how we ask them, and also helping the teacher to ask the right questions about an EdTech product, and for you to get right information in order to, or qualify design input, I would say. And also, if there is a research base, it's also so much easier to act with each other. There isn't that easy for a teacher from the public sector to interact and share their ideas with a startup that they never met before. There is a huge culture difference, and having this support really helps to overbridge that culture difference. We have a way that we do this. We are working in 3 steps. We help companies and teachers before, during, and after a test. And before, we make sure that you can identify your needs. We invite all companies to test with us as long as you have a developing need and as long as you have a well-formulated test question. What kind of feedback do you need from the teacher? If you're not interested to develop your product, you should not apply to test with us. And we also help you meet the teacher with matchmaking events and meetings. And during the test, we have our test method that kicks in, and that will help you to have a red line during your test and make sure that you ask relevant questions and make sure that you have meetings and follow-up meetings. And after a test, the teacher is making a short evaluation, and you will get a report from the test. And you will, of course, get a diploma when the test is finished to prove that you've been testing together with teachers and are not afraid of interacting with your future users. just to give you show you some words from teachers and companies, and this is my last slide. I will not read it out loud, but you see the yellow dot there is from a teacher who's saying that it's fantastic. The company is so curious about our input. In several cases, we receive almost immediate feedback from the companies that they have already begun to change functions in the tools based on things our students have conveyed them. And then you see that it's the word empowerment, which has been, this teacher describes it that I will continue with this forever if I can, because it gives so much value back to both the teachers and the students in the school. And the company who's been testing together with these teachers are saying that the direct dialogue with the teacher and the students who use the products is extremely valuable. And this is a small Swedish startup that, of course, have a hard time knocking on all the doors that you need to knock on. So we have at least opened a few to them. So this is the Swedish test bed for EdTech, and we are happy to welcome all Nordic startups and other EdTech companies who are curious to know if their product works on the Swedish market. I must say, though, that as Janni also said, that we see that Swedish teachers and educators are, and especially when it comes to K-12, are more comfortable in testing with companies that have a Swedish-speaking person here that they can have a dialogue with as well. So that's it, Elena.
Yes. Thank you, Hannah. Yeah, that's very a good practical point, that you would need at least staff that speaks Swedish, but maybe even be here physically, and at least after the pandemic, when traveling is easier again. And also another thought that I had based on your presentation there is that isn't that one of the fantastic things with digital learning material, that you can so easily adapt it and change it and further develop it as opposed to maybe a book that is printed. It was also interesting, you mentioned the cultural differences. What's your view on how big are they within the Nordic region? We often think we're quite similar, but maybe that's not quite true.
I'm not sure if I'm the best person to answer that question.
The school systems, maybe you know something.
Yes, of course. I mean, the school systems are different, and I think what is very special for Sweden is that it's, I mean, it's not only the school who decide what to use; it's the teacher, and it's on a very, it starts very close to the floor where
the classroom.
The classroom who's picking the what to use in the classroom.
Yeah,
I would say that's probably one big difference.
Yes. We have a few questions that had been sent through already before. So in your experience, Hanna, how good are the opportunities to go from a test to an actual contract with schools after finishing a test with you?
That's not an unusual question. We are not connected to public procurement and to doing business. I mean, the tests needs to be free in order to make it easy to be a part of them. But saying so, at where I work in Nacka, at least 3 of the 10 companies who's been testing here made business as well with the schools. So, yeah.
Okay. That's good. I think we have a few more questions here. Yes, question regarding the EdTech testbed. What type of digital tools are tested? Tools that are oriented towards content creation or process-oriented tools, such as learning management systems or learning planners? Or is it maybe all of this?
We focus on testing what is used in the classroom. So not that much content more, but saying so, I mean, content could also be, there could be an EdTech where the teacher can create their own content. So there is, but content and teaching situation, materials that support teaching situation is our focus.
And another question from the audience, what are the plans for the test bed in the future?
They are great and big. No, but as I showed you my slide with all the partners, this is a great group of partners. And our ambition is to make sure that this can continue and grow, because we see that we need to create even more value, and also develop on how we test. How can you get a deeper understanding from a test? How can we make longer tests? How can we make bigger tests? How can we also add researchers to what we are doing? And one thing is, before this meeting, I had a discussion with Educate in Great Britain, who help edtech companies be more evidence aware. We are looking to bring them to Sweden and also create values to the companies through them. So my plans is to expand and create more value for both teachers and edtech companies.
And another question, do you also test data security, such as GDPR?
No, that's a requirement to be, no, we're not testing that. We are testing in teaching situation, creating value for the teacher and the company, but not the GDPR, no.
Yeah, and we heard before that GDPR is something you have to have in order in any case to be here in Sweden in this business. And one more, how much does it cost to be part of the test bed as an edtech?
Today it doesn't cost you anything.
Right. So thank you, Anna. I think that's about all the questions we have. Sounds great, and I think a lot of edtechs here find that very interesting.
Thank you.
Let's move on to our next program point here. The Swedish edtech market from an international perspective. Comparison to global edtech markets, buying and providing solutions, and the key success factors for a newcomer. So I'm going to welcome Keith Fransson. Keith, who is an investor and management consultant specializing on edtechs. And today we've asked him to put the Swedish edtech market into an international context and reveal the key success factors for a newcomer. Keith, I can see your presentation here, so it looks like you're all ready to go.
All right, thank you very much. Thank you very much and welcome everybody. I'll try to do this very quick. As I told you, I'm working as an investor. That is, I help edtech companies grow internationally. I'm chairman today of Regional, present in 80 countries, and ILT, present in 5 countries. Having some 20 years in education before and in higher and academia, so I've been working from a teacher perspective and up basically before. A lot of wise things has been said already. I'll not try to repeat myself because those wise things are very good to listen to. I'll try to give you a perspective from an international perspective as Swedish market compared to other markets. And entering a market, you surely know, all you out there that's already done that. You need to answer a few questions. What market size is it? How's the competition? The readiness, the aptness to buy a product, the customer behavior and process, and what are these from a company perspective in Sweden like? Once you know these 4 things, you need to do for other things. Of course, the product market fit, how can you fit the product in the market and the business model to it? The sales approach to reach the market, and the marketing approach to sort of prepare for the sales initiatives. And fourthly, how do you win long term? I won't be able to answer all of them. I gave you my view on them, all over the education spectrum from K-12 to higher ed. So firstly, the markets, we're already into that a bit. The Swedish market is a small market. It's open, and I would say in prematurity. That is, you find very many companies out there competing. As Jenny said, the market is quite small. By all means, it's a small country, some 10 million inhabitants. However, if you look at the graphs, it's about 1/3, 1/4 of Germany. And considering that Sweden is basically 1/8 of Germany in inhabitant size, it's fairly large to be in a small country. And the readiness to upper right-hand side, this is an interesting example of the ICT experts, the IKT expert in Swedish, very, very present in the education sector. And that is good ambassadors for you all out there that want to enter the market. These people are there to get this new solution into the classroom. The competition, this is in a survey I just did just recently. I was comparing 333 edtech companies from the Nordics and Estonia. Even Iceland is there. And this is a map of the competition. It shows, for example, that there are 85 companies present in learning resource and environments, that is content and LMS area. There's some 11 working in the assessment tools. And if you would choose from the competition you will meet in Sweden, the domestic players you will have to face. You can see from this graph, this matrix, that assessment, for example, is a tough area. There are five companies present already. There are Swedish in the home market. The AI and robotics is also some 50% of the present companies in the Nordics are Swedish. On the other hand, you can see some other segments are sub competition. My view on the market is that many of these companies are subcritical. They are small, very small. Some are startups, and there will be sort of shakeout in the years to come. Even though there's a good market that is growing, as we saw in the upper right here, there will be tough times for many because the sheer number of companies, there's so many out there. And the access for venture capital will decide the durability. But many will succeed, of course, and I hope you will be many of them. So, and I'll try to, oh, that was on page 2. Yeah. So looking into the 4 things you can do and need to do, the K-12, the higher ed sector, how do you get a product market fit? This is impossible to answer for all segments out there. Every segment has its own requisites and demands, but if I would sort of extract some general things that I see from successful businesses in EdTech sector, the ease of use is king. That will lower the entry barriers for sales, and you can make a bottom-up approach towards teachers and getting it into the learning processes. And that is also the second point here, contact with context. That is, don't try to change the teacher's learning process. You have to adapt to it and facilitate it. The market is still open for new applications as long as these 2 first requisites are met. What business models work in Sweden then? A business model is the way to get paid. I mean, by the end of the day, that's what's paying your salary. To the lower left, you see a graph over the sort of paying models and business models in EdTech globally. Some 50% of the companies get paid from institutions. Some 25% are getting paid as a premium institutional model. That is, they try to offer something for free, and then they have a premium paying part of the offer. Some 17% are trying to sell direct to consumer. That could be parents paying for a K-12 student, or a higher ed student paying themselves or something. If you adapt these, try to understand this in the Swedish context, I'd say that the premium institutional can work, and we've seen a lot of examples of having it work, working upside from down and up, getting pressure from teachers up to the headmaster, to the municipality buying the solution. Direct to consumer enjoys the ease of the non-curriculum environment. You don't have to sort of follow the curriculum to that extent in the classroom. You can act more freely. However, there's no tradition in Sweden to pay outside school funding of the learning content or teachers. So, but there might be a change on the way, but that's not the tradition in Sweden. Traditionally, as I might have told, the premium content, that is, you choose to offer it to consumer and then hope that they will pay. It's fairly difficult in all sectors. I don't think it will work very good here neither. So in K-12 then, what do you do in terms of sales and marketing then to succeed? What do you have to do practically? As we've heard earlier today, schools are decentralized and well-financed. Even though I will add to Jenny's stating that there's some 600 Swedish krona per student a year is the yearly budget for learning materials, I'd say that still the schools solve this issue by still buying things. Out there, they're fairly well financed if you look at other countries. If you look at southern part of Europe, it's impossible to get financing without involving parents or other financiers. The markets, the contracts are fairly small. All these 290 municipalities are small in themselves, so there will be quite small contracts then. Moving down, the criteria would be the sort of best practice to go to market. Could you act locally, or do you need to can you sit in your country selling at a distance? I think distance sales works quite good. if you're offering non-complex services. As we've heard earlier today, you have to prepare for customer service in Swedish and also tendering, putting out tenders in Swedish. Dual track sales, that would be the best practice, approaching teachers or headmasters to get the pressure in one municipality to get a contract for all the schools in the municipality would be a way to approach a local geographical market in Sweden. That has been shown to be successful. The ICT responsibles, as we talked about earlier, can be ambassadors. Other things concerning marketing, partnering, there are some distribution hubs should take contact with this Lära Media and School. You can call them distributors. Yeah, they're worthwhile to call. Marketing automation is a way of preparing for sales. Swedish market normally offers quite good response rates. So that's a way of working before getting you on the phone, calling the schools, I'd say. They're quite strong teacher knowledge networks in Sweden, so they can be reached through Facebook and social media. That's a way to think about as compared to other markets internationally. If you move over to sales and marketing in higher ed, then Sunnet is an important hub for tenders and framework agreements. It's a 40-year-old institution in Sweden, making tenders out for many universities together, and they're gaining ground doing that in more and more situations. By the end of the day, the institutions themselves decide who to choose and buy, but the first round of the tenders often come from Sunnet, and the second round there's a choice by the university. The university market in Sweden now moves over to the second generation LMSs. That is Canvas mainly, that is gaining ground very quickly. Blackbird and some domestic LMSs, the ones you saw on the page before, there are quite many local domestic LMSs are losing out. And yeah, so if you have integrations with Canvas and you're moving on to this market, it can be very interesting to take a talk to Canvas concerning Sweden. I'd say we've talked about GDPR before, that is becoming an issue in all over Europe. In Germany, it's almost impossible today to get in selling things without being super compliant. I'd say the Swedish attitude is a little bit more dynamic, the solution oriented. You can have a talk how to do it. Holland just banned Google out from higher ed sector, and that's something to keep your eyes on. That's not yet happened in Sweden, though. So what would be the best practice for selling higher ed solutions to Swedish market? I'd say as for the K-12 market, distance sales works quite well. If you have a low level of complexity, if you're selling an LMS or a content platform, you need to have a local sales staff, I'd say. And as we said earlier, it's important to prepare both the tender situation. You have to probably answer the tender in Swedish, and you have Swedish native speaker that meets the customer. That is, you don't have to have the Swedish speaker, of course, in Sweden. You can sit in Estonia or Finland, as long as the person speaks Swedish. I've seen examples where they have English-speaking people. The Swedish are normally good English speakers, but that's not sufficient, I'm afraid. So the last thing to win long term is a bit more blunt. Stay patient, stay focused. It's not easy, but there are many things to do out there. As I told, the market is growing. It will be some tripling in some 7 years. So there are a lot of things to do, a lot of things to fulfill. So good luck out there.
Great. Thank you, Keith. We have a few questions for you here as well. Let me just pull them up. Very interesting to hear your hands-on tips there, and also the international comparisons. We have a member of the audience here asking if you'd be willing to share the list of companies that you have collected from across the countries. And also Nadia is asking where we can find this full study that you presented.
Yeah, you can contact me for a coffee. We can have a discussion, because these things, in some extent, they are bought material that I can't share. But send me a mess or a mail, and we can discuss it.
Great. A few more questions for you have also come through here already beforehand. So you've gone through loads of advice here, very hands-on, as I said. But if you have to choose like top 3, what would be your best hands-on advice for an edtech company willing to enter Sweden? What would you have to think about?
Be very careful in selecting the sales staff and the marketing staff. If you can find people that know the Swedish edtech, the Swedish school sector, and have some contacts, that will facilitate things. Will be easy to get meetings. You know what's going on. So be very careful in selecting and choosing the sales staff. It sounds like a bit boring advice, maybe, but I think that's the cost of selling these solutions often is very high because it takes a long time to get into contact, landing the contract, etc., being maybe in a tender process in between. So that issue is one of the biggest. Very few edtech companies succumb because of bad products. I've been around in Finland and Estonia, seen astonishing edtech solutions from a technical perspective, from a user perspective, but on the sales side, that's the big challenge. How can we get sales going in a short period of time?
And distance sales as well. So it requires some good telephone skills.
Yeah, but that works. So
yeah,
won't try it.
How different is the Swedish school system compared with the other Nordics? How easily can their solutions be adapted here? Do you have any thoughts on that?
Well, some brief words, it's difficult to describe the differences in between the school systems, but I'd say that in terms of funding, because the willingness to try, Norway, Denmark, and Sweden are more alike. I don't know that well Estonia. Finland is a bit more budget oriented. There's a big budget pressure in Finland for the moment in the tech sector, I'd say. So it takes a little bit more, even more of stamina in Finland. But all countries, I mean, have a curious and open-minded school staff and headmasters that want to try new solutions and very so fact-oriented. There are some countries in the southern parts of Europe where sort of relationships are very important. You have to know the headmaster personally to get a deal. You have to be in the sort of around the headmasters of the higher ed institutions. But that's not the case in the Nordics, and definitely not in Sweden. Do you have a good product and you get through the sales and get in contact, you'll, I'd say, most cases get a very fair chance.
Yeah, so it's easier in that sense. You don't have to have loads of previous contacts, right? If you have the good right product and if you can sell it. We have another question for you here, I think. Yes. What about edtech company funding? Edtech company funding game in Sweden, is it only VC based or is there municipality funding programs currently? So venture capital or municipality, I think.
Yeah, the ecosystem in Sweden, as in many other Nordics, is very, very extensive today in funding these type of sectors. This sector is probably the hottest right now for venture capital. E-commerce for a long time was very hot, but I'd say edtech for now is top 3 in terms of interest of Swedish investors. And that's a good sign. So there'll probably be a lot of, like myself, for example, interest from investors talking to you if you have a good idea and a plan to make it work. But the funding from municipalities direct to companies is not allowed. It's illegal, so that will never happen. The funding is eventually to buying the products, I'd say.
And you, as you have a good view on the international situation as well, how advanced would you say that the Nordic region is when it comes to edtech solutions and digitalization? I mean, I'm sure we like to think that we're at the top here, but what's your view?
Geographically, we are at the top, but no, I'd say in terms of usage, there's a fair amount of usage here, but the American market is by far the most advanced, but it's also the most differentiated. You can find regions or states in the United States that are after Sweden, Norway, Denmark, Finland, Estonia in terms of development, but like parts of New York are far before us. So, but I'd say the usage is high, and the solutions are appreciated, and they are bought because the market is well financed. They can finance the solutions by the end of the day, I'd say.
Great.
Does that answer the question?
Yeah, I think. Very good, thank you. Thanks for that. And I see there's been a bit of discussion in the chat. Do have a look at the chat now and then in the audience as well. You might find answers to some of your questions over there. Now let's see. Our next presenter here is a company case. We'll be moving on to Clio, Danish company Clio, and we'll be hearing about their journey towards market entry in Sweden. Do we have Thomas Overholt Hansen here online? I think Thomas was running a little bit late, but let's see if he's here already. Do we have contact with Thomas? Or any updates on his whereabouts? Let me just check here. Just 2 seconds and I'll check here with my colleagues on if we can get hold of Thomas. All right, so I'm hearing Thomas is on his way. We have a few extra minutes here while we wait for him. Anyone else feel like jumping in and commenting? Oh, now we have Thomas here. Great, welcome. I'll just fill the audience in a little bit on your background. So you're the director of Clio, Danish edtech company developing innovative and supportive solutions for the school world. And Thomas will share his experiences on entering the Swedish market with you. Thomas, whenever you're ready. And I think somebody has some kind of a background noise on in Danish. If you don't like to check so that your mics are muted, except for Thomas, of course. So
yes.
Welcome, and the floor is yours.
Thank you, and thank you for the introduction, and sorry for my late entrance here. My computer was acting up a bit. So I'm Thomas, and I am the director of Clio Partners, not the entire Clio, but for a subdivision in the Clio business. And I'm trying to share screen here now. You see my screen now, or in a few seconds.
Not yet, but I'm sure we'll see it soon.
Now.
Yeah. Yes.
Right.
I'm seeing it. Yes.
Okay. So I'll jump into this. Just a few words on Clio. Clio is a company that sells digital learning materials for elementary schools, primary and lower secondary, in both Denmark and Sweden. And everything we do is sort of working in the space between technology, content, and services. So we spend a lot of time on embedding educational material into a technology setup that improves learning for both for kids and the learning output for kids. Brief on the Clio history. We were born back in 2008. We launched our first portal for history by our founders. They were both, or two of them, were history scholars. In the next coming years, we expanded our product portfolio to more subjects in Denmark, as the Danish market grew more and more digital for Danish market for learning materials. And then back in 2012, we experienced a rapid growth of our customer base and our product portfolio also, that because there was Danish subsidiaries put into the Danish market. And back in 2015, we launched our platform 2.0, which is what we are using now. And in 2016, we were acquired by Bonnier Publication, or Bonnier AB, sorry. Or everyone in here that's Swedish knows that it's the biggest media company in Scandinavia. And together with Bonnier, we entered into Sweden. So we've been in there in the Swedish market for the last 5 years. And right now we're working on a new platform, and we've also launched our partnership product for other markets. But main focus here is like we have all subjects, all portals, and we've been in Sweden for 5 years. And this is just, you can read all of this afterwards. We have a lot of users, and actually we are present at 90% of Danish schools. and also a lot more in Sweden, where we are sort of, it's one of our growth markets. But reason why I'm here today is also to sort of share a little on our insights from entering the Swedish market as an edtech company. And so I try to sum up this into 5 slides, 5 points. And first one, sort of with my insights at least, or my organization's insights. First one is if you want to enter the Swedish market, that you would be told that the Swedes are consensus seeking population, and they're not kidding. I think that one of the great advantages of Swedes are when they set their mind to something, they also really do it. But that can also sometimes mean that they spend quite a lot of time on coming to that decision, and that's definitely at least sort of a difference between, at least from our Danish market and also other markets, where we've seen that the decision part, especially in a growth market, in a digitalization process, has been influenced by this. We've also seen sort of if you are a B2G company and you want to address the Swedish market, then it's for, there can be governmental intentions or talks or discussions on something, but also our experience is that sometimes change takes a lot of time in sort of the political or regulatory sphere in Denmark. I know some of you that are working in different climates, like Swedish edtech industry and stuff, and they will probably also recognize this. And we definitely see that that's somewhat a difference from Denmark. Also, I think it's a structural issue or a difference where the Danish departments in the government often have a little more autonomy and say in some of the structures. So don't base the success of your market solely on the governmental intentions, is like my specific advice. A little more positive is that there's a huge digital maturity and in the Swedish market. And what's really interesting is it's very organically bred, because that you have no hard regulations toward this. So you would see that everything that's in there, and Sweden is still one of the most digital markets in the world. Which make it, of course, extremely attractive for an edtech company. Swedes are also known and also have a self-awareness of being an innovative people, that they want to be in front, and that's at least my opinion, and that's something that you could use in your value proposition. So when you come in and facing the Swedish market with hopefully a new and smart technology, use that to your advantage, saying that here's something cutting edge, and that would and can be an advantage in a Swedish market that wants to be one of the best in the world for a lot of things. And then my last here is just an insight on that. That we find that going into Sweden, there was a lot of Swedes actually telling us that the Danish schools, for example, or the Swedish schools was very different from the Danish, and the teachers were very different. And when we found out, they were a lot more alike than you would actually expect. And we have much more as such in common than what actually differentiates us. And I think that is something that's worth to remember, that sometimes when you innovate for a new market, then sometimes you need to take into consideration that we're very different. But I honestly believe that Swedes and Danes are very much alike. We are working in different structural environments, both sort of political and also workforce related, but we have much more in common than what's differentiated. So that's at least also a big argument for actually trying out your stuff in the Swedish market. Now I have 1 minute left, and that was actually my questions or my inputs, and this is me.
Fantastic. Thank you, Thomas. A very practical and hands-on presentation there from you as well. could you just tell us a little bit more maybe about what kind of solutions you have on the Swedish market? What are your top successes here, for instance?
Yeah, we sell digital learning materials for schools all over Sweden, and right now I think we are present at 30% of all Swedish schools have one or more of our products. So that is everything you need for teaching, for example, Swedish in third grade, or no, actually not fifth grade would be where we are right now. So that would be that, or math in seventh grade or whatever. So we do all of the learning materials you need for that.
Yeah. And what kind of a team do you have here? Do you have a team present here in Sweden or on a distance, or how do you work?
We have a local team. At first, we had a big local team building the product up there. At one point, we were 100 people in Sweden. Now we are probably more like 30 because we finalized the development of our product portfolio in Sweden. So we have a team of 30 people up there now, but primarily consisting of sales and customer support and such.
And you started with 100 people.
No, we started with one, of course. Everything starts with one. But we didn't, honestly, we're maybe not the best sort of comparison here. We didn't build like really organically. We went in full force, and we hired first person, and that person had the job of hiring 20 more. That had the job of hiring 20 more. So because we really supercharged our development, but I think we could have gone in much more organically, and that's definitely also a possibility. So we are running a lot of our product organization, or actually our entire product organization today is being run from Denmark. Our entire marketing operations. At that time I had a marketing team of 5-6 people in Sweden, and we moved that to Denmark and hired people that is coming in from Malmö or actually living in Copenhagen. So that's also one of the big advantages.
Yeah. I think you touched upon this a little bit, but we have one question here from the audience. How did you start entering the market? What were the steps? So you were talking about that a little bit with your first person there who hired more people.
Yeah.
And after that.
So we decided to go in. We had the first hire in April 2016, a little over 5 months after we were acquired by Bonnier, I think. We launched products for 10 subjects by September. So that's 6 months, and seeing that a lot of content on our portals, and also we had to integrate our platform to a new market. So that's why we sort of supercharged that. So within 3 months we had like a full team of people, editors doing work. We've always had our tech people here. I don't know if that answers your questions.
That's good. Thank you, Thomas. I think that takes us to the end of this session 1. A big thank you to all of our speakers and to the audience for joining us for this first session. We're now going to take a little break. So we'll be continuing here in right about 13 minutes at 2:30 Swedish time with our session 2, where we'll be looking at more into the future of education and especially digitalization in it. So thank you for now. See you in about 10 minutes. Stretch your legs or have a cup of coffee or something or glass of water, and see you soon.
Bye.
So welcome back from the break, and for those of you who are just joining us for this session 2, you're listening and watching the webinar, The Future of Education in the New Nordics. My name is Elna Nykänen Andersson, for those of you who haven't been watching our program earlier, and I'm the Present Cultural Counselor at the Embassy of Finland here in Stockholm. I'll be guiding you through this afternoon, featuring an international panel discussion on the future of education, a very exciting showcase of Nordic edtechs and much more. Now, this second session is titled The Future of Digital Education, Swedish Roadmap and an International Outlook. When the corona pandemic struck about a year ago, much of education quickly moved to remote or hybrid learning. The need for digital tools and ways of working became urgent very quickly. And over the next hour and a half, we delve into the digital transformation in Sweden, Denmark, Finland, and Estonia. What have been the best practices and innovations in coping with this crisis, and what does the future have in store post-COVID-19? How can digitalization be used to ensure future skills, improve education, and help teachers in their daily work? Let's move on to our keynote for this afternoon. Annika Ageli-Jenlott, I think we have you here. Yes, I see you. She's currently spearheading the National Action Plan for Digitalization in Schools here in Sweden. It's a project that she runs at the Swedish Association of Local Authorities and Regions in collaboration with the Swedish School Agency and the government. Annika also has extensive experience from the school sector as a teacher, as well as research and development coordinator and PhD in informatics at Örebro University. We are very happy to have you here as our keynote speaker. Annika, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here as well, and it's been an interesting day so far. I've joined you from the very beginning. I'll spend my 10 minutes talking about, I'll pose a question from the beginning. This pandemic, has it really made any transformational change of education in Sweden? And I'll get back to that. That's kind of sort of a question, because in Sweden, we often now these days talk about we took a giant leap, or we come very far and we managed well. And I agree with that. We managed well. I would like to say that to all the teachers and school leaders and local authorities and so on and so forth. But I also want to kind of, I would like us to rethink what do we mean by coming far during this pandemic and this crisis? What have we learned really? So I'll get back to that anyway. I work at the Swedish Association of Local Authorities and Regions in Sweden. And it's an employers organization and an organization that represents and advocates local government in Sweden, really. All of Sweden's municipalities, as you heard before, 290, and the regions are members of my organization, also called the SALAR in English. We are the largest employer organization in Sweden, and our members are the employers of more than 1 million people. So that's not only, of course, for education, but all of the other sectors as well. I work at the Department of Education. I've been the project manager, as you said, of the National Action Plan for the Digitalization of School that we handed over to the government in 2019. And it was according to the digital strategy that was decided from the government in 2017. And as Janni said before, that was the first digital strategy of Sweden. So even though we've come far, we haven't had so much steering or leading the digitization from above. So Sweden is a decentralized one-to-one country. I think you know what that means. One computer or device per child, launching a national digital strategy for school in 2017. So quite late in a way, since we have all this digital infrastructure. It's been a grassroots development mostly, but of course we also have had some kind of national initiatives that's been made from the politics. But I would say all over, it's a grassroots process, and it's kind of left us with a high degree of inequality, really. So some of the municipalities and schools and teachers have come very far, and some of them have, hardly started yet. So that's a problem. That's a big issue in Sweden. That's also why we got this national strategy, because the government realized that we have to, also in Sweden, we have to kind of lead this process in some way. So leadership, we've got criticism from OECD in this, is kind of an issue in Sweden. Who is steering? It's the local authorities, since we have a decentralized school system. It's the local authorities that are to lead the schools, and they have a great autonomy, as we said, and the schools have as well, and also the teachers. So of course it's an issue of how to lead this from a national point of view, but it's important, and I think we've come so far that we know that we have to do this now. I just want to kind of shortly say something about my doctoral dissertation, because I think it's really interesting. It's, for those of you interested, I have a link here, and it's just to download. It doesn't cost you anything. It's called Designing for Transformational Change in School, Digitalizing the Digitized. And I call it that because I believe we are digitized in Sweden. If you compare digitized and digitalized, it's a big difference. Digitization, that's the action or process of digitizing, the conversion of analog data into a digital form, and nothing more or less. Digitalization, that's the adoption or increasing use of digital or computer technology by an organization, a school, or a teacher. Then digital transformation, that's a marked change in form, nature, or appearance. So I would say Sweden, that's why I call it in my doctoral dissertation, I think it's about digitalizing the digitized. We have the technology. Most of us had, as Jenny says, also students and teachers and so on. But do we know how to use it in a good way in order to get the results up for the students? Sometimes we do, sometimes we don't. And in this dissertation, there's also a chapter concerning the historical, because we've been doing this for many, many years. It's not new, really, but we haven't come really so far as one would wish, I would say. So according to this COVID-19, this has been a real life test, as you know. It's just in a few hours or anyway days, we had to move from normal teaching to remote teaching and learning during a crisis. And initially, it was highly disruptive for mostly for upper secondary school in Sweden, because the other schools were open, as you know. But during the second and also now the third wave, this has also been affecting primary school in Sweden. So as we know, it's not only remote learning, but it's a sort of hybrid teaching and learning practice, which has led to, as we know, increased inequality, really, and a lot of winners and losers among students. We see good things have happened. We see students that do things that they couldn't do before, but we also see students that are not doing well from this. So post-COVID-19 lessons learned, that's sort of anything can happen. School is important. The socialization in school is really important for students. One size does not fit all, but it fits some. So I mean, we see also positive things happening when we have had this kind of distance hybrid teaching and learning, but also problems. So it's a wide scale of learning, really. Big differences in maturity. We see that local authorities that were really mature before knew how to, they had kind of a digital ecosystem working. They had, of course, easier to adapt to this new kind of situation concerning to the pandemic. So there's a need of functional digital ecosystems, both national and local. And we also learned that we have a need of long-time systematization according to digitalization. We don't do this in a year or 2 or 3. It takes time, and we have to lead this change. I also want to say it out loud here. I think you know it, but still there's a discussion in Sweden, and I want to really be clear about that this remote teaching and learning during a crisis has little, or I would say almost nothing, to do with a quality assured and systematically digitalized school, which in turn then requires transformational change within the whole school organization. So I would say, for my first question, we haven't really transformed yet, but we have to do that in order to get the real results. So now we have sort of a new starting point, I would say. And I would say that it includes bringing along experience from this remote and hybrid learning during the pandemic. And we have to kind of learn both internationally, like here in this session, and nationally and locally, because there are differences, of course, but a lot of learnings to make. And this new starting point, in a way, must be built on a mix of practical experiences and research. As researchers, we also have to kind of be aware, and this was a real life experiment, and we have to learn from it. And who knows, we might be in another situation in the future. Probably we will, unfortunately, probably we will. We should also take seriously the digital divide, because there is a big difference in Sweden, since we haven't decided from a national point of view, as the same way as we don't do concerning the pandemic. It's up to each local authority to decide by themselves. But we have to also take into account the digital divide, not only according to the access to technology, but according to the digitalization. How do we use the technology that we have so that the teachers can make better teaching and the learners can learn more? It's not only happening by itself. So this requires systematized national and local leadership, and it requires successful digitalization in school. As I said before, requires transformational change across the school organization. So I think that was about my time. So I'll stop sharing here. If there was any questions.
Thank you, Annika. Very, very interesting to hear about your research there and about your views on the stage of digitalization in the Swedish schools. We do have a few questions for you already. And the first one is about the physical and emotional well-being of students and staff. I mean, of course, that's especially important now, given these special circumstances and the pandemic. And how do you think that technology could cater for the personal and emotional needs of students and even staff?
That's been, and it is, a big issue in Sweden. And I know that teachers and local authorities have kind of tried to solve it in different ways, sometimes by calling on the mobile phone to students each day, also by using technology like Teams, or if you use other sort of software to kind of get in touch with the students every day, really. But I think
to see that they are actually attending and that they're not just at home.
Yeah, not only sleeping the day away or something. But I guess it's also it's the same as I said before. One size doesn't fit all. Some students like to have the camera on and see the teacher and talk to the teacher, feel close, and some of them don't. They don't like that at all. So I think you kind of have to approach this in different ways. And I know we try to do it in Sweden, but also I know that some of the students, we have to open the schools for them because they need to get to school. The technology, it's not possible for them to in a way, get in touch with
And a different area than this next question. What do you see in the intersection between social media and education? I mean, at first sight, one would think that they could be pretty close to each other, at least both could be on a smartphone. You could have a learning tool of some kind, and you can have your TikTok also there. Do you have any thoughts on that?
I think it's my opinion that because as a former teacher also, I use social media also for in teaching and learning. And I think it's as with other digital devices, if you are a leader in the classroom and you know how to use it and which goal you have with using it and so on and so forth, it can be really good. Really good. You can both for the students and for the teacher. But you have to kind of lead it as you have to do with all the other digital technology, because otherwise you get this, many people are talking about it's only like disturbing, but that's kind of, you have to, that's a responsibility that you have as a teacher. So you decide whether to use it or not and how to use it within school, of course. So I think it could be great. It can be. I know it can be great, but it can also be an issue if you don't manage to lead it. You know,
it's a tool that you can use in different ways.
As any tool, analog or digital. Yeah, I think so.
Great. Thank you, Annika, and do stay online as you're also one of our panelists in this international panel, which is our next point of attention here.
Thank you.
And the heading for this panel is a new paradigm for education. And I wanted to start by introducing our other fantastic speakers. You already met Annika there. We also have Birgit Lao, who is the Estonia's diplomatic representative for education and a passionate advocate for education innovation with more than 20 years of experience from the field. Welcome, Birgit. I saw you waving there. Then we have Mariana Sall, Finland's education ambassador and an experienced diplomat with previous postings in Mauritius, Kenya, South Africa, and Indonesia. Let's see if we have, yes, Mariana has arrived as well and has her camera on there. And last but not least, Finn Togo, Chief Consultant for the Digitalization of Schools in the National Agency for IT and Learning under the Danish Ministry of Children and Education. Welcome, all of you. Very happy that you could join us here, and let's go ahead and start with our questions. So with 1 year of COVID-19 behind us and many schools at least partly in remote learning mode, let's just see how the year has been in your respective countries and what are the main lessons you've learned about digitalization and education during this time. Mariana, what are your thoughts?
Good afternoon to all. It's a pleasure to be to take part in this panel discussion, a very prominent topic these days. But yes, as elsewhere also, Finland closed almost all of its schools last spring in a very fast way. And according to some international and national studies, this transition to e-learning last spring was actually quite successful. And some of the reasons behind this success was firstly because of our highly educated, skilled and motivated teachers who have also a lot of autonomy in their teaching. On both primary and secondary level, our teachers they all need to have a master's degree. Also, a peer learning model helped our teachers during this transition to e-learning, distance learning, and tutor teachers which supported them in the digital practices and working methods. Also, I would say also that behind this successful transition was a long-term investment in digital infrastructure and competencies in Finland and in schools. For example, that there were already homeschool communication platforms set up before the crisis, stable network connections, and schools' previous efforts to procure devices and introduce digital learning environments. I would say that some of the main takeaways that we have learned is that, first of all, that this distance learning cannot fully replace classroom teaching, because schools serve for other purposes except learning. So they are very important for children in their welfare and development and in their social interactions. So schools should not be closed, or should be closed only when it's absolutely necessary. And then we have also seen that with distance learning, problems associated with inequality worsen, because in distance learning situations, parents' capacity to help children play a big role, and not all children live in those kind of families where parents are able to support them in their teaching.
Yes.
So, and obviously teachers' role, I think, as a consequence, and how to address these challenges is that I think teachers' role become even more important than nowadays in distance learning. So we really need to focus on teachers and their skills and their motivation so that they can support the kids.
Thank you, Mariana. How about Finn? Let's go to you next. How has the year been in Denmark, and what have you learned?
Yes, hello everybody. I hope you can hear me.
We can.
I would say that our situation in Denmark is quite a lot like the Finnish situation, actually, as you just described, Mariana. I think that the Danish, especially children and also teachers, they were quite competent already in the beginning of this pandemic. But the takeaways, I think, is that, as you said, inequality worsened, that teachers, they were not as digital as they would like to be, and that has become very much better during the last year. So we have had a big competence evaluation in Denmark. And also a takeaway is that a lot of new ideas in teaching formats has come through. One example is that many teachers, they have done the cooking subject in the primary and lower secondary at home, so that the teacher was with the children on a device, and then they just cooked to their families.
So like a cook-along.
Yeah, cook-along, yes. And many parents think, why don't we do that more often also after the pandemic?
That's great.
I think another takeaway is at the national level that the minister in Denmark has held meetings with the sector nearly once a week, and she has never held so many meetings with the persons in society that decides what to do. And that means that the command line has been shortened very, very much, so that if the school leader, the school leader representative, for instance, want to speak to the minister, then he can merely just call her and say, what do we do with this and this? And the cooperation between the levels of education has also become easier in this pandemic situation.
Yeah, so something good has come out of it as well.
Yes. So.
How about in Estonia then, Birgit, your view from Estonia?
Yes, I think on a larger scale, the situation was as described in Finland, but I would like to emphasize that learning actually never stopped, despite of the fact that it happened at school or in a hybrid mode or one-to-one, or there were some other exceptions possible. But I would like to say that we were lucky in a sense that there were some aspects ready before last spring. And the readiness means that the infrastructure was there. Of course, there's a room for improvement, like we can have a better connection, we can have more devices. But if we lacked something like devices, the schools provided it. And if we lacked connection, then we got the free upgrade or a router. And also skills of teachers and learners, content to be taught, and e-assessment tools. Those were ready before the pandemic. And those, like this golden triangle, actually got heavily tested and still is tested throughout the pandemic. And what else was tested? The ability to actually direct or self-direct your learning. This is the big question. We are aware so much more, so many study difficulties, and we still don't know how to actually handle all of them at the moment. And we got aware of the fact that there's no one solution. There are multiple demands, and of course the answer can be there have to be multiple solutions. But what really happened, and I'm really, really proud of, is actually the cooperation between sectors, private, public, and I would say also personal, because we got so much personal input from parents, from business sector. And the way that actually edtech companies in Estonia opened up their services for free for all, of course, to test, but also to help. And this was really a good act. And this is something we can build on with the situation.
Yes, thanks for that. And Annika, you already touched a little bit upon the learnings in Sweden, but do you have more thoughts on this subject from listening to your panel colleagues here?
Well, I agree to a large extent, but I think in Sweden as well, we think that we made this very good, and I think we should be proud of ourselves, but we have to kind of not be satisfied, because I'm afraid that we think that now only because teachers can teach with video in front of them and students at home, we take a giant leap, and I don't really think so, because it's not. They do, in a way, it's quite much like business as usual, because in some ways, and some teachers are doing a transformational change in their teaching, but they're not doing it, all of them. So I would like to be kind of warning due to saying that we've come very far. But I mean, it's been a great learning experience, even though it's unfortunate, of course. And I said, someone here is asking if I could explain what I mean with this transformation. And I would say that what we've seen in Sweden is that those municipalities and local authorities that were mature before, they were kind of systematizing the technology within their schools. They did a transformation. They did this together with the school leaders, with all the schools within the municipality. And they did great. And I'm sure they've learned a lot. And they've taken a giant leap, because they will bring this back when we have school in school, and they learn from it. But it's different, because some of the teachers have only been doing the same thing, not only, but, teaching in front of a computer. And I don't know how big difference that is from standing in front of the students in the classroom.
That's perhaps not the sort of a genuine use of digital tools with all the features and capacities that they have. But let's look at that a little bit more. I mean, what role does digitalization play in securing a quality education for everyone? Where is the added value in this? And on the other hand, how can we minimize the risks and concerns that there are with it, for instance, regarding inequality? Let's go to Finn first. I mean, I know a survey in Denmark showed that most teachers want a balance between analog and digital solutions. Could you tell a little bit more about that?
Yes, we just made a survey among teachers in primary and lower secondary, and some people in Denmark don't think that any teachers use digital devices at all, and some people think that they use it all the time. And what our survey shows is that most of the teachers are quite satisfied, actually, with the balance between analog and digital devices, and most of them, they're also satisfied with the influence they have on buying these digital resources. But of course, some are not satisfied. But it is a very balanced picture, or so to say.
Yeah.
And then I think that if you should conclude anything, it should be that this pandemic situation has given all teachers and leaders a crash course in basic computer knowledge. And that has helped a lot in many schools. Even the chairman of the Teachers Association in Denmark, he says that he has to admit that quite a big part of his colleagues were not as familiar with digital devices and programs as they are now. So he's also happy, and he wanted the competence to increase in the following year.
Mariana, what do you think? What can the digital tools add to learning and the school board that the analog ones don't have?
Well, I believe that the digitalization it's not an end in itself. I think it's really important that these new technologies are used in a pedagogically meaningful way, and so they are only good if they are really easy to use and are trustworthy and serve you well, and that these digital education technologies work for all learners and especially those in need of in need of special support. And I think to do this, we probably need to do a bit of further research on digital education and how it works best. But I also believe that there's really enormous potential in it if it's done in a pedagogically sound way, because obviously there's a lot of possibilities of scaling of learning solution and blended learning. So you can basically learn from anywhere and whenever. So there are a lot of possibilities.
And Birgit, your thoughts on this?
Yes, I think we could distinguish two sets of approaches here. One is digital teaching skills, and another thing is learning ability. So they don't always match. That's my message. But also, I think what is an added value of any digital tool compared to analog? Digital nowadays and in the future has to be able to respond and give us feedback how its usage has been. So actually it's like this, we say in Estonia, de-testing or de-assessment, digital assessment. So there are so many smart ways that actually movement or eye movement or hitting something can give us extra information how children learn, and this is valuable. We should focus on that.
Yes. And Annika, I know your interest in this started in the classroom yourself, and you wanted to increase the efficiency of learning with the children.
Yes, it is really, and I agree. And I think that it's important that we start with the pedagogical questions and then add the technology so that the technology will become the lever for the pedagogy. Then you can gain so much from using digital device and digital technology. They're almost endless opportunities. And what I would say before is that I want us to get there. I want us to be better and better in using them for pedagogical reasons, not only like choosing the technology first and then adding the pedagogical goal. Maybe, I can do this with that. I have to be like a teacher, really, I want to get that goal and I'll use this technology and we will get, so much better student results. So
it requires a good knowledge of the tools as well, doesn't it? It seems like there's some training required for the teachers too.
Exactly.
So today's subject is the new Nordics, of course. And what do our countries have to offer in this situation when it comes to these new learning solutions? In which areas are we perhaps especially strong? Let's start with you, Mariana. I know that the Finnish solutions, for instance, are often developed and tested together with schools and universities.
Yes, exactly. I would say that that's one of the strong points in Finland, and like I said, this transition to e-learning went pretty well in Finland, and yes, the skills of Finnish teachers played a major role, but they were also helped in this task by this range of solutions developed in Finland. And I think one of the strong points in EdTech in Finland is really that it's teacher driven. And so there is a good understanding how these technologies can complement teaching methods at schools. So this means, like you said, that many of these EdTech solutions have been developed by Finnish teachers and tested in Finnish schools. And I would say that another key feature is that many of these EdTech solutions are based on years and years of scientific research done by universities with proven educational results. So this public-private partnership is there. And I think these two key features are really key and key points how to also to market these outside. Maybe I would add on that that these other specific characteristics of the Finnish EdTech innovations is firstly that they provide pedagogical tools for the users. Secondly, they support the development of 21st century skills, and they also focus on this joy of learning and well-being of the learners. So I think it's important also to talk about how we make learning more fun, and if you include kind of this edu10 and gaming industry to the ICT sector and EdTech solutions, then maybe also we can offer solutions which make learning much more fun for the kids.
I'm sure the kids would appreciate that a lot. Birgit, what would you say from Estonia? What are the sort of unique selling points of the Estonian EdTech?
I would say flexibility and speed in a sense. Of course, it's important to cooperate with the research and universities, but some pain points are so painful that you can't really wait for a couple of years on doing research. And I think, again, then in that sense, it's important to track the trails left behind. So of course we have cooperation programs with teachers and schools and children, and we emphasize testing the solutions. But again, I think the flexibility and speed and readiness of the sector to provide services and the openness of the public sector to actually ask and look for solutions from private sector, this is the key that actually has helped us so far. So I think if we open up more from public sector, we will see better results. And if we, for example, look at the EdTech solutions at the moment, we have N8 from Nordic countries, we have Teach Millions. But what do we have to offer from the public sector side? Do we have a common sort of like a demand or cry for help? I think we should actually take a role model of our startups here.
How about Denmark, Finn? How does it work there with the teachers getting involved or the speed of getting new solutions out to the market? What's your view on the Danish side?
A few points is that in Denmark we have a kind of single sign-on solution, so that it doesn't matter which company that offers a new digital learning resource, then they can just apply the single sign-on solution, so that all children easily can get access to this digital resource. Another thing I think that we have learned that is important is a good dialogue between the authorities and the private sector companies who deliver almost all learning materials in Denmark. And then you should emphasize maybe that in this period there's been much more focus on GDPR and data safety and what about the pupils' data, so that we have a dialogue with our companies in Denmark that they should make GDPR by design when they develop their learning resources. So that's some points I think we could take from Denmark.
Yes. Now, to round off this panel discussion, let's look into the crystal ball a little bit. What do you see in the future? What will children's school days look like? And you know, how much will we see of this fantastic digitalization with a genuine use of the tools that we've been talking about? Let's go to, we can start with Birgit on this one.
Yeah, it's 5 or 10 years. I think it's sort of like a short period and then it's a very long period. But I would say that after, let's say, 10 years, we emphasized learning outcomes and learning like skills much more than we emphasized age for certain stages of learning. So I would say that learning becomes much more personal. It becomes much more, we will become much more aware of how and where we learn. And then taking lifelong learning approach, for example, at the beginning, that you can take your time and still have your goal, and this is very okay. And you can have your independent curriculum and let's say 20 years for upper secondary degree. This is fine. I think that would be something to look for.
Depending on how you are as a person and what's the best way of learning for you.
Yes, you will have. We will definitely have much more feedback on our own learning trail and much more feedback on how we learn and where we are good at or what kind of skills and competencies need maybe updating or more emphasizing or vice versa. So I would say that recognition of what we have learned will become very difficult, and this would be an area for new startups. But I think yes, we will have billions of individuals with different learning trails.
Yeah, Mariana, what are your thoughts on the future? What do you see there?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of possibilities if they are all, like I said, based on sound pedagogical solutions. But for example, let's say artificial intelligence will open up very interesting possibilities for the learning systems, and it will enable maybe even more proactive learning processes. How about artificial reality? Because then that also makes the classroom, or can make the classroom very, very different from now. And all these new technologies which can make learning more fun, improve motivation, and also help different learners to achieve their learning objectives. But I think all this means that because our societies are changing so rapidly, and I think the most challenging aspect in all this is that this digital transformation is super fast. So we really need, all of us, we need to find ways to cope with this constant change and have better and better digital skills. And obviously our education system and our teachers will play an important role in that as well.
Yes. Finn, the view from Denmark.
Yes, I'm very, I agree to a great extent with Mariana that the biggest issue is that it is changing so rapidly and due to technology, most of it. And that is why that we have in Denmark have a 2.5-year trial now on a subject we call technology comprehension. Which aims at giving children in all ages an understanding of what technology is and what they have to be aware of, where they have to be critical, what they can create, what business models they can learn, and as a basic skill, children in Denmark should have this. And we're very excited to see what the politicians will do in this autumn, where they have to discuss whether it has to be a part of the school subjects or it doesn't. And also what Mariana also said was artificial reality, for instance, and interactive laboratories and more fun in education. I would also say that could be the case in Denmark. And then the lifelong learning aspect, I think, is very, very important. I had a meeting this afternoon with some teachers at the vocational sector who said that more and more people working in ordinary companies, they tend to think that the digital learning is nice because it is quicker and it is you don't have to drive for it, and that will really be a big thing, I think, in the future.
Quickly, Annika, to the end, what are your thoughts? What do you see in the future?
Quickly, briefly, I think I'm positive. I think we will have learned a lot. I think artificial intelligence, of course, will affect what we do. But I really hope that we systematically have become better in choosing and developing software than we are now, because that's very important. And I hope that have learned to better creating models how to do this. EdTest is one good example, really. And I also would like to finish off by saying that I hope this sort of events with the Nordic cooperation, also with the Baltic, is very, very important. I did the same within the National Action Plan, and I would like to see much more of this because it's important. This is not a one country work or we have to do this together, or we should do it together. So that will be my last words.
We definitely agree with you on that. And we do have some questions for you from the audience, but as I see that it's already 3:15, I think we'll move it on to the Nordic EdTech Showcase. But if you can, our great panelists do stay online, and hopefully we'll have a joint Q&A at the end of this session, and we'll take up those questions then. But for now, let's go to this very exciting EdTech Showcase we have here. Successful digital tools from Estonia, Finland, and Denmark. We have Estonia first here, I think, the Estonian EdTech cluster first up, and I give the word to Anneli Tank, CEO of EdTech Estonia. Anneli, are you online?
I am online. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Can you hear me well?
Yes, then I can see you as well. That's great.
Perfect.
Go ahead.
Then in a second, I'm going to share some slides with you and just to illustrate some of the thoughts. It has been a very interesting day so far. And thank you all for the lovely presentations and the topics. And I have my notebook full of notes. So I think that many of you share the same.
Yeah, that's the point of this, to inspire and inform.
Yeah. So let's do a quick sharing. I hope that we'll manage to do it well. Just a slight second. So, asking once more, can you hear me well and see the slides too?
Yes, we can.
Oh, sorry. Yes. Yeah, my mic was muted. We can hear you and we can see you. Just go ahead.
Perfect. So like I was introduced, my name is Anneli, and I'm working as the CEO of EdTech Estonia. And EdTech Estonia is a very young cluster in a sense that it was established in the late year in December 2020. And now altogether we have 28 plus members in the network, because every single week we are now getting more and more members or organizations and startups interested to come. And what we are doing, we are supporting and empowering EdTech companies in Estonia. That's very shortly to be said. And if we talk about the target more specifically, then what we can say that we are supporting innovation in education, and also we really stand for developing the ecosystem to get the new, fresh startup ideas actually and help to grow and empower those startups and edtechs who have actually already started their journey in edtech field or education field. Then the second very big and important topic for us is to be in a very close collaboration between different parts of the education market, so to speak. And like Birgit just spoke beforehand, Birgit was representing the Ministry of Education and also the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. We are communicating nearly on a daily basis. And here you can actually see how close those communication ties currently are But of course, we are all the time working to get the communication even more efficient between the different parties. But also, of course, we cannot forget students, teachers, companies, our own edtechs, and several other companies, and also, of course, the policymakers. And also, we are helping to support the worldwide export for edtech solutions. And I can really say that our edtechs have target markets starting from European countries, very close ones, up to Asia Pacific or US markets. 3 Ps: partners, product, possibilities. So of course we cannot do nothing or anything alone, like it has been emphasized before too during the day, that it's really important to be in a collaboration with different partners. And our great partners, of course, next to all the ministries, starting from the Ministry of Education and Research, is the Estonian Education and Youth Board. And also 2 bigger partners are Education Estonia, who is, so to speak, marketing Estonian education across the globe, and Startup Estonia, and Estonian EdTech Solutions were also on the Startup Estonia project for several years. If we talk about the product itself, I really don't like usually the word, if they say product about education, but still we can say so, that in previous years, we have had very good positions in PISA tests, for example, and in digital learning. And this is actually, if we talk about the marketing tools, one of the topics that we have been using if we talk about the Estonian education. And as I have also been previously working on the Enterprise Estonia, which is also one of the organizers of today, then I know very well how actually important it is to give out the messages like this out. And if we speak about the COVID-19 response, then like Birgit emphasized also beforehand, and I think that all of us, we are very proud of the things what EdTech companies did together. And later on, you can see, as I provide the slides and information, maybe some of you haven't seen this very awesome page where different type of possibilities were actually put together during nearly a year ago, when the crisis situation actually bursted out all across the world. If we now talk a little bit about numbers, then we have currently, this is 2020, as you can see, and we have 42 startups in this sector. Employees, the number you can see here, and the turnover numbers and the gross wages too on the screen. And now if we talk about those companies who actually are the heart of the EdTech Estonia, or heart of the NGO here, you can see them here. We have more to come, step by step, adding them. But one of the key points that I would like to emphasize today, I know that later on Espen and Heini will give a floor also to some of the companies, but I would like to highlight the importance, the topic of mental health, which, for example, in Estonia, we have had very specific and a lot of discussions about the students' mental health, teachers' mental health topics, and we just now a week ago, less than a week ago, made a full list again from those companies, from those edtechs who actually can give us support to the students and teachers, and also of course the parents, because many of us actually have the same roles all the time. When we're working at home offices, we have to be both parents, teachers, and you know it well. And many of those companies who can actually see here, and also who we are now having the first contacts with to become a network members, also share really the aim not to only stay still with the current target group they have, but they are all the time working towards getting bigger and bigger. For example, if you talk about here, for example, the tutor ID, who gives the helping hand for students who actually need tutoring or assistance, or if you talk about Alpakid, for example, then all the time they are growing. And for just now 3 days ago, the European top 10 startups in EdTech were revealed, and we were really proud that actually 99 Math, one of the companies you can also see on the screen, was actually one of those 10 who was pointed out as being one of the top EdTech companies in Europe, which we are really, really proud of. And very important topic here also to mention, which I think has been during the day covered slightly also, is how we can actually use the digital tools or the edtech solutions in a way to approach students more efficiently. Here you can see, for example, PhotoClass, Mobile Lab, etc. on the screen, who actually use the virtual reality or different type of gaming, which of course I know the colleagues across the Nordics know well. Many edtechs are doing those solutions, but this is the market which is what we can see also in Estonia that is really rapidly growing due to the fact that our younger generation prefers gaming in that sense. And now I have taken my 10 minutes, and I know that we have also 2 other awesome colleagues going to share their insights.
Perfect timing.
I'm more than happy to answer all the questions you have during the session or later on in LinkedIn, for example, or you can just directly write me an email. And our cluster is, like I mentioned, still it's in baby steps, but we have very, very great companies working there. And let's see, we have set ourselves a big aim. By the 2030, we would actually like to have the numbers of the revenue 1 billion euros for the edtech companies. So let's see how it will go. But
sounds fantastic.
Yeah,
great. Thank you, Anneli. And moving on swiftly here to Finland with Heini Karppinen, CEO of edtech Finland. And I think you also have some guests with you. Let's see, Heini.
Yes, I am here.
There you are.
So
yes, go ahead.
I'm just setting my presentation up.
Yes.
But yes. Yesterday I read the news that there are about 10,000 vocational school dropouts annually in Finland. And that is a big number. We're not the only country with this problem. Luckily, our most recent member, the intelligent student guidance bot, Any Advisor, is helping the student support staff to prevent dropouts before they happen. This is just one example. And welcome, I noticed you might be still listening here. Welcome to the club. edtech Finland was founded a year and a half ago, and currently we represent 40 edtech and ecosystem partner organizations resolving big challenges in education. And of course now in general to exit the pandemic too. For me, this event here, thank you for organizing, it's kind of a reflection point to see how much we have achieved together as Nordics. So it's great to be here with all of you. The edtech companies, they do not succeed without a supportive and functioning business ecosystem. And this graph, I put it together with Anna Dementieva. It illustrates that there has been a lot happening in recent years in Finland. There are industry-specific, one industry-specific accelerator, innovation hackathons, conferences and networking events, public sector programs created for co-creation with schools and innovative procurement processes. Also, new funding mechanisms have appeared later in the timeline, as well as now we have a new joint Nordic marketplace for edtech solutions coming up. What we could have next is, I think, some mechanisms to build pan-Nordic supportive structures for the edtech industry. It's sometimes hard to cross the country line to build something together. In global comparison, it seems that the K-12 segment and the high PISA results in Finland earlier, they inspired innovative founders and entrepreneurs in the Finnish edtech space. Gaming, playful learning, or technology and language skills, they are strong, as well as high quality learning analytics and management systems of different kinds. Many of our most recent new member companies represent other segments too, like corporate and lifelong learning. They are transforming, renewing digital learning services to solve the challenges in workforce upskilling. Of course, some of you may notice that it's sometimes super hard or impossible to put one solution in one category, but this is the best we could come up with. And it's an ongoing process, of course, to keep it updated. Today, we will have a closer look at two great solutions in the K-12 curriculum space, also available for the Swedish market and other neighbor countries too, of course. They help educators globally to teach highly valued skills, early childhood language learning, Moving Language School, and new literature skills, Code School Finland. Floor is yours, Anu first, and then Kaisu. Welcome. Let's see if you got your microphone open. Great.
Okay, so you are changing the slide.
I will do that for you.
Oh, okay, great. Hey, thank you, Heini, and it's a pleasure to be here. My name is Anu Kuttarva. I'm the CEO and founder of Playviation and Moving Language School. So we help children to learn languages at an early age, and we help teachers to teach these precious little early learners. We have a very long background in digital language education. Me, myself, I've been in this field for 15 years. We collaborate with the Moomins, and we share the same values as these lovable characters such as tolerance and respect. Our expert team includes linguists, early childhood educators, language teachers, and experts in technology. We are a leading service provider in Finland, and we collaborate with 70 municipalities. So our clients are kindergartens and primary schools, in private and also in public sector. In total, we have 16,000 students in our service. Okay, Heini, you can move to the next slide. So a few words about our solution. So we provide a learning application for children. It's a story-based content. It's a perfect tool to build up vocabulary, grammar, and pronunciation. For teachers, we offer playful lesson materials, and they can combine the learning there. So when the children have learned the vocabulary, they can practice social skills in a social situation and use the language in the lessons. We very actively support our teachers. Also, we provide progress reports for teachers and parents from the use of the application. So when we put together these parts of our service, we can create an effective, playful, and very immersive language learning environment. If you want to know more, please do contact us. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Anu. And now we have Kaisu.
Thank you, Heini. My name is Kaisu Palaskalli. I'm the CEO of Code School Finland. So we all agree that children need to learn skills that they will need in the future. Next slide, please. Numerous countries globally, including Sweden, have included learning goals related to coding in the national education curriculum. Next slide, please. So it's not a question if we should teach coding to children, but it's more about how. Project-based learning is a teaching method in which students learn by engaging in real-world projects. And this model suits well for learning coding in combination with other subjects. Next slide, please. Code School Finland makes teaching cross-subject coding projects easy for all kinds of teachers, no matter what their expertise with coding or their subject. We help teachers in implementing coding instruction. We are not replacing teacher with a platform. So we packaged up everything to make it as easy as possible, from kindergarten to high school, in the classroom or online. So we provide books for students that can be used as digital or printed books, teaching manuals for teachers, detailed lesson plans, and tools for assessment. We do hands-on teacher training and offer self-study courses combined with online coaching and support. Next slide, please. So our customers, the teachers, like our solution for two main reasons. One, the pedagogical approach that promotes student motivation. And two, teacher friendliness. Teachers can save time and learn to teach coding and robotics in a sustainable way. And schools can improve their students' learning, comply with national curriculum requirements, and support their teachers' professional development. Next slide, please. We have taught future skills since 2014 here in Finland. We have customers in 9 countries, including the Ministry of Education in China and Google. The first schools in Sweden have now used our materials in the classroom with positive feedback, and we're having discussions with several municipalities. Our materials and services are available in Swedish already. So as you know, Swedish is the other official language here in Finland, and we work with several cities already providing training and materials in Swedish. So I'll be happy to provide you with any more information. Thank you.
Thank you for those presentations from the EdTech sector in Finland. And to finish this bit of the program, the Danish EdTech cluster is ready to talk. And I think we have Esben Trier, CEO of the EdTech Denmark online.
Yes, can you hear me well?
Yes, I can.
And can you see my slide on the screen?
Absolutely. You can just go ahead.
Thank you everybody for still hanging in here after a couple of very interesting hours. We will do this fast and swift. And my name is Esben. I am CEO of EdTech Denmark. We are a very similar organization to the other Nordic and Baltic EdTech organizations, but then again, a little different. As we are not an industry association, we are more an interest association. So we have 3 groups of members in our organization, which is both EdTech companies, from small startups to big tech. Then it's school universities, and then it's also municipalities and the public sector. And I didn't organize my slides as well as Heini did. And I won't use my time going over what we do here because we are very similar, as I mentioned in the beginning. So I would rather say that we have companies in the organization ranging from immersive tech and virtual labs to language training to social learning and so forth. Today I brought 2 examples of Danish EdTech I would rather give the floor to use the last minutes here. And first I would like to give the scene to Søren Adolf from MeBook. And Søren, I will do your slides from here, so you can just take it from here. Thank you.
Super, Esben. Thank you. Can you all hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you well.
Okay, thank you very much.
Hope everyone else can.
Yeah, I hope so too. My name is Søren Adolf. I'm one of the 3 founders of MeBook Learning Management System. Right now we have a lot of focus on our plate on how we can collect and use these findings from the Corona lockdown and see what effect it will have not only on platforms like ours, but also in the schools in the future in the post-Corona area. So I'll start today. I'll just share a little bit of those findings with you. It's very preliminary, and I have a very short time, but I boiled it into some of the findings we so far find very interesting. Slide, yeah. Just really short introduction to us. We started in 2012. We were 3 people. Now we are the biggest supplier of a learning management system in the Danish public school sector. 46 of the 98 municipalities choose us as the learning management system. We had a mission from the beginning, had to be user-friendly, and also as the panel discussed early on, the teacher has to be in focus. This has to be about learning and pedagogical thoughts and not about the IT. So I think that's part of the success we've had so far. And move on, Espen. These are the main functions in a system like ours: planning, collaboration between the teachers, knowledge sharing between the municipalities across the country, of course, at the schools, but also involvement of parents, school leaders, and others that are built into our system. And all these functions, of course, makes really good sense in a Corona lockdown. But how can we use this afterwards? And that's the findings we are looking at right now, not only in data, but what else, where we can find these findings. And change the slide, Espen. One of the findings we found is that it is really important to have an infrastructure. And in Denmark, we're really lucky. We have people like Finn from the Ministry of Education's IT, where they built a whole architecture. So platforms like ours integrate with Clio we saw early on, where you can find the content. It integrates with Google and Microsoft and all these, because it's very important when we have teachers, parents and students that it's easy for all these systems to work together. And also we are very lucky to have the what you call it, one login in Denmark, Unilogin, that connects everything. But one of the really interesting findings is that when it all goes online, the parents get on board, and we've seen an increased interest from the parents, from not only inside of the daily work, but also a more involvement in what is happening in the school. And these systems like ours and others can actually give the parents a good chance to connect with the school more and actually support their own child in their learnings. So that's a really good thing that we will look into in the future. Also, we can see that the other lockdown from January in Denmark until now, the teachers work much more organized. Instead of everybody logging on at 8 o'clock in the morning, they now log on at 8 o'clock, they log on at 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, 1 o'clock. So it seems like the teachers and the schools are actually trying to figure out ways how to make this work much better and have a structure for it. When we talk post-corona, we had just a small taste of it in August, September, October, where the schools were open. And it was just a tiny window into post-corona. And what we saw was the records that hit us from logins and usage during the corona was actually broken in August and September. Even more people were logging on. And right now, in that area, we had 43% of the teachers were logging on every day in our platform, and 74% at least once a week. And that shows us also, as others have discussed today, that when you let the teachers know the systems, when they get a more, as Finn talked about, better understanding of both the systems and others, they start to choose what they want to use it for. And as soon as they do that, the usage actually grows. So that's a very positive thing from our chair. And also, as
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry. Thank you very much.
Thank you,
Really
Søren.
short.
Yes, Ben, you're being a very good moderator there.
Let's go on then. Kasper, are you with us from Nordic Schools?
Yes, I am.
Thank you.
So I'll just take my 4 minutes now. So thanks for listening to all the interesting things I've been hearing since 1 o'clock. Thanks a lot. So at nordicschools.app, we know that Finland is above us all. Finland is a fantastic country, and it's been for the last 20 years the envy of everybody in the school world. We've experienced that all over the world. But we shouldn't forget that in Estonia, they are really good at working with academic skills such as reading and science. And in Sweden, they're very good at inclusion. In Norway, they really specify, especially in Oslo area, in classroom management. And in Denmark, we work a lot with teachers' social competence and a lot with well-being. So what we wanted to do at our Nordic Schools app is to build a brand new platform where you can find inspiration to do just this. And the inspiration comes from teachers all over the Nordic countries. Next slide, please. So first we made something called the Nordic teaching model, where we try to show all the things that the Nordic teachers do differently, for example, from a Spanish teacher or a teacher in Portugal or a teacher in Dubai even. So this is the Nordic teaching model where we have emphasized especially social competence, but also classroom management and other things. Anyway, so we wanted to put this online, and we just did 2 weeks ago. So next slide, please. We launched the Nordicsschools.app platform, where you as a teacher can do training, and you can read, and you can listen to podcasts, and you can see videos about what is good teaching. So why are the Finnish teachers so good? What can you learn from a Finnish teacher? And you will find it all in there. Next slide, please. So you can take and analyze, you can analyze your own teaching, and then you will have some materials that can make you an even better teacher. So next slide, please. So what we do with the platform is actually not to provide materials for the children, such as Clio or other fantastic companies, but we provide stuff for the teachers, because we want the teachers to be even better. And we think that in the Nordic countries, when we travel the world, we've been to 15 different countries, visiting places where they say, oh, it's so interesting what you do well in the Nordic countries. And what they say is that we are very good at combining academic skills to children's well-being. I mean, combining these two things, they walk hand in hand in the Nordic countries. And we have to spread that in the Nordic countries and, of course, outside of the Nordic countries too. So feel free to go to Nordicsschools.app or send me a line on info@nordicschools.com. Thanks a lot.
Thanks a lot. And I think that was the inclusion from Denmark.
Super. Thank you, all three of you, and also the Finnish and Estonian presenters for that lovely showcase. I think we do still have a few minutes for Q&A. If any of you in the audience have questions, you can write them in the chat. And we also have some questions already that were sent to us beforehand when you registered. So I think hopefully we still have our international panelists here as well. Let's start with a question that is a bit related to those EdTech presentations we saw. I wanted to ask Mariana, if you are still here, hopefully, how exportable do you think these EdTech solutions are? The Finnish ones, for instance, can they easily be adapted to other countries, such as Sweden, even though the systems and the curriculums might be different?
Well, yeah, I think, well, all the school systems are very much linked to society, and I don't believe that one can really export its school system to another country, but we can share our best practices and learn from each other. And in terms of these EdTech products, I think what is important is that services need to be really modified to fit into the countries and societies' needs. Now, if we talk about Nordic markets, we have our societies are pretty much the same. There's not huge differences, so it is easier. But still, I'm pretty sure that still our school systems have some differences. But if we are talking about exporting these kind of high-end EdTech solutions to, let's say, to a country which is very different from ours, we could the Gulf countries or China or Africa, for example, or a developing market. I think one needs really to know the market, the society's needs, and it's key to have a trustworthy local partner so you can modify your product so that it fits perfectly to this local market's needs. So, and if you do that, then I think there are ample examples, even of EdTech products, which are fit even for developing countries' needs. So,
local partners.
Local partners and knowing the local market's needs and fitting your product to fit to those needs. So you maybe modify the product.
Yeah. I think the mental health of students and well-being was mentioned here earlier. Birgit, a question for you. How can we serve students holistic learning and their social, emotional, and spiritual well-being in an increasingly digitized educational landscape? In Estonia, you've worked on that for years, haven't you?
Yes, I think one of the tasks or opportunities is to actually describe what we mean by that. So if it's one of the sort of like general competences and thus learning outcomes we drive towards, and it's something that makes the schools work on that. Another thing is to have tools for that. So my great colleague Kadri Tuisk is sitting here from Glanbeat, which is actually doing exactly what is needed, emphasizing well-being in the area of digital learning. So I think as many different approaches we have, then the wiser and better we are. I just like to say that overall, in analog world, in Estonia, we have a national network for students with study difficulties. So we provide those services on spot in each school, and it's mandatory to have those kind of services on spot. And from there, you can build ahead.
Mm-hmm. Also a question for all the edtechs that we have here and just presented. How can we improve the bonds between the Nordic edtechs? We heard here that at least some of you thought that maybe you could join forces more and try and export outside and at least learn from each other. What do you think about that?
Well, I can say from a Danish perspective that I think that we have to have more events like this and maybe more focused on how can we share things online for, say, half an hour, where it's only about that. And it takes some preparation, but I think it's a brilliant idea. And I think what Annika talked about, that we should start with the pedagogy and then add the online resources. I think that's the whole point. I think that's really one of the most important points. So I think we should start sharing more pedagogy with each other. And then we can add, should it be a film or should it be whatever, you know. But the technique is something that should serve the whole pedagogy and the children, obviously, and the teachers.
Any other edtechs that want to comment on that? Espen or from the Finnish side, Heini, maybe?
Yes, I could comment if, yeah. At least what we have been doing within our association that has been pretty interesting and helpful, I hope, for everyone, is organizing these peer-to-peer events where we share best practices. And they can be really, like, we don't have to explain things much. We know exactly what we are talking about. And these kinds of exchange of expertise you cannot really do with anyone else but other edtech companies. Another thing is there are lots of things we can learn from each other across Nordics. So that could be done with a wider group. And of course, talking with national, let's say national board or something like this, we could have some specific talks together. Yeah.
Espen, I think you also were about to say something.
Yeah, and I can add from a Danish perspective that, you know, we being such a small country, along with a lot of the other Nordic and Baltic countries, a lot of our edtechs look abroad and look for the international market. We have a mapping now in Denmark. We have close to 200 edtech companies, and I get new companies on the radar every week. And when we speak to international stakeholders, they look a lot to the Nordics. So the task would be how to, market and how to present in the Nordic as one. In the case of Denmark, we have a public-private partnership called Digital Hub Denmark, which is now promoting Danish technologies abroad. So I think there's a huge opportunity if we are able to cooperate between the countries. Absolutely.
Well, with that, I think we come to the end of our program. Top marks to all of you for being with us for so long today. We still have quite a few people online here. I hope you've had an inspiring and informing afternoon. I'm sure, at least I have enjoyed it very much. If you like any additional information on the companies and the issues presented here, do get in touch. We'll be emailing you with the necessary contact info to get started. And you'll also receive a recording of today's event. So thank you for joining us once again. Thank you to all the presenters and to our partners, and have a wonderful evening. Goodbye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, thank you.
Thank you.